and 2 years, depending on the severity of the violation. The company also stated its updated protocols address content that doesn't violate its community standards, but, quote, contributes to the sort of risk that materialized on January 6, such as content that delegitimizes an upcoming election or is related to QAnon. Now, notably, unlike direct violations, that content would just have its distribution limited, but it wouldn't be taken down. Also, the penalty for repeat offenses here being that Meta may temporarily restrict access to our advertising tools. And as far as why are they doing this, also why specifically right now, it explained that it had addressed whether or not to extend the unprecedented 2-year suspension it placed on Trump back in January of 2021 and determined that the risk to public safety had sufficiently receded. With Meta also arguing that social media is, quote, rooted in the belief that open debate and the free flow of ideas are important values, saying that it doesn't want to get in the way of open, public, and democratic debate, and adding, the public should be able to hear what their politicians are saying, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that they can make informed choices at the ballot box. Now, of course, with this, we saw the expected backlash, many noting that this ban has not stopped him from spewing lies about the election. He's just been doing so on Truth Social since his ban. In fact, 2 top advocacy groups in the space recently estimated that over 350 of Trump's posts on the platform would have explicitly violated Facebook's policies against QAnon content, election claims, and harassment of marginalized groups, which is why you have a lot of people saying that Meta shouldn't do this, that Trump still poses a threat, including the likes of NAACP President Derek Johnson, who condemned Meta's decision, saying, Mark Zuckerberg's decision to reinstate Trump's accounts is a prime example of putting profits over people's safety. It's quite astonishing that one can spew hatred, fuel conspiracies, and incite a violent insurrection at our nation's Capitol building, and Mark Zuckerberg still believes that is not enough to remove someone from his platform. This was also echoed by other experts who argue this isn't just a US thing, saying this will have worldwide ramifications because it shows authoritarian leaders that they can manipulate Facebook to their will. But also, of course, on the other side, you have plenty of Trump supporters and conservatives cheering on this move, saying that this is a win for free speech, saying this shouldn't have happened in the first place and it should not happen again in the future. And that's something Trump himself also hit on in a post on Truth Social, where he claimed that Facebook had lost billions of dollars both removing and reinstating him, and adding, such a thing should never happen to a sitting president or anybody else who is not deserving of retribution. With this going on to praise Truth Social. And so actually with that, you have people going, well, is he actually going to go back to Facebook and Instagram? He hasn't gone back to Twitter yet, right? Elon Musk reinstated him a while ago. And personally, I think the answer is really fucking obvious. Of course he will go back at some point. Right? You have places like Axios noting, hey, if Trump goes back, it sends a signal to investors of Truth Social that he's not confident in the company. The only things that Donald Trump cares about is Donald Trump and winning. Why would he not use those tools? Why would he not use those platforms where he has millions and millions of followers? Because at the same time, he'll be able to use his presence there as a way to get even more people over to Truth Social, or at least that can at least be the smokescreen to justify why he's going back. I just can't imagine a world where he doesn't take advantage of this. But hey, that's a story, and we'll have to wait to see how things play out. And I mean that both in what is Trump going to do and also what are the platforms going to do, because it's easy to say that there are rules and guardrails, and then it's a whole other thing to actually enforce it. And then hospitals are coming for your money, or as my grandma used to say, they gonna run your pockets, ho. Rest in peace, Granny D. But you're gonna say, Phil, that's not anything new. I'm scared to get in an ambulance because I'd almost rather die than be in debt forever. Also, if this sounds extremely alien to you, welcome to America. But it's the specifics of this story that matter, because not all hospitals are equal, or at least they're not supposed to be. Right? Because as it turns out, a Times investigation found that non-profit hospitals are divesting themselves of their charitable roots in favor of more profitable pursuits. So you might not know this, but around half of the nation's hospitals are non-profits, meaning that they're getting those juicy benefits like $1 billion tax break. However, like Uncle Ben said, with great tax breaks comes great responsibility. In exchange for these massive tax breaks, the IRS requires these nonprofit hospitals to provide services like free care to the poor to better their communities. But as it turns out, Providence, one of the largest chains of nonprofit hospitals, they didn't like that idea of not squeezing every single dime out of every sick or injured person. So they actually made a detailed playbook for their staff on how to pressure patients into paying. And if that didn't work and they still didn't pay, Providence reportedly would send debt collectors after them, meaning that poorer patients are now saddled with medical debt that they simply can't afford and shouldn't have in the first place, which is directly contradictory to Providence's founding principle, steadfast in serving all, especially those who are poor and vulnerable. Just to fully frame this properly, Providence was started by a group of nuns who wanted to help poor people, and right now they're reportedly sitting on $10 billion of investments, which, by the way, is less than half their total revenue in 2021. And Providence's total spending on charity care was less than 1% of its expenses in 2021. And even before their profit-focused program kicked in 2018, it was 1.24%. Now, here's the thing. Federal law does not state who is eligible for free care, but certain states, including Washington, where Providence is based, do have rules on who qualifies. And in February of last year, the Washington State Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Providence, saying that they violated state law by sending debt collectors to more than 55,000 patients for a total of more than $73 million. And the chief executive of Providence even called the title nonprofit a misnomer in an industry publication 2 years ago, saying it is tax-exempt healthcare. It still makes profits. Kindly go fuck yourself, sir. The head of Providence, an organization meant to take care of the sick and the poor, makes 8 figures a year. And actively hounding and harassing poor people has become the business model. But also, the thing is, it's not just Providence looking to do this. Right? Another nonprofit healthcare chain has the highest profit margins of any hospital in Virginia, with just one hospital reportedly making $100 million a year. Now, reportedly, the IRS has long known what's up, with a commissioner writing to the Senate in 2005. Some tax-exempt healthcare providers may not differ markedly from for-profit providers in their operations, their attention to the benefit of the community, or their levels of charity care. Like, the general idea of these nonprofits and the tax breaks, all of that is, if you make money, you reinvest it so you can help your community. Then we see examples of hospitals being bought up. All of a sudden, hey, we have more money, let's make more clinics. But then for some reason, those clinics are only being built in wealthier areas where people have private health insurance. And I'll actually link to it in the description. The New York Times has a fantastic piece on this. And these new ones are being built with like marble water fountains and golf carts to get patients here and there. But ultimately, here's the thing. There is no way that they are going to change their behavior unless the government, and specifically the IRS, cracks down on them. Because these nonprofit hospitals are going to ride the line as much as they can, and even go past the line, and then afterwards, pay fees if they actually get held accountable. And even though we do see instances of that happening, largely they're not held accountable. But like I said, if you want to dive even further in this, I'll link to it down below, but this is also something that on this show, we're going to talk about more in the future. And then, with basketball, hockey, the NFL playoffs, and concerts all in full swing, there's always an event for everyone, and you're not going to want to miss out. Which is why I want to take a quick second to thank a fantastic sponsor of today's show, SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. Living in LA, I'm going to Rams, Chargers, Lakers games, hitting up a Kings game, a comedy show, going to Pantages, because I love musicals, don't hate. There's just so many events I can enjoy with my wife or the kids or some friends. And SeatGeek is absolutely my go-to, especially because SeatGeek wants to make sure that you're getting a good deal. So when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good deal, red means bad. And every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And don't worry, I got the hookup for you. Use code Phil for $20 off tickets as SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code Phil. So make sure you click that link in the description to download the app. And then...
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
This is Alec Murdaugh. Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child just got badly.
That was 54-year-old Alec Murdaugh, and depending on what's about to come to light, he's either grieving for his family or the perpetrator of a grisly double murder. But to understand this mind-bending tale of lies, theft, and betrayal, we need to go all the way back to the beginning. I'm talking back to 1920, when Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was elected to the local prosecutor's office for coastal South Carolina, kicking off an 87-year, 3-generation-long legal dynasty that held the post until 2005, ending with Alec's father, with Alec himself inheriting the fame, wealth, and power of his family name, rising through the ranks of high school, college, and law school to join the private practice his great-grandfather started back in 1910. And he had deep ties throughout the community, serving in numerous organizations and donating to Republicans and Democrats alike, which is why it came as such a shock when he said he returned home around 10 at night on June 7, 2021 to find his wife and son shot dead at their rural estate, leading to that 911 call, with his wife, Maggie, being killed by a semi-automatic rifle and his 22-year-old son, Paul, by a shotgun. It was just this senseless, gruesome tragedy, and days later, you had Alec's brothers grieving on Good Morning America.
I got a call from Alec Monday night, and as soon as I answered the phone, I knew something was wrong. Oh, man. He just told me, he said, come as fast as you can. Paul and Maggie have been hurt.
But as investigators looked into these killings, they reportedly discovered information that prompted them to take a second look at another case, that of 19-year-old Stephen Smith. Smith's body was found on a Hampton County road just miles from the Murdaugh property in 2015, but while his mother thinks that he was murdered, the mystery was left unresolved. And very notably, Smith had attended high school with Alec's other son, Buster, and the Highway Patrol's case notes back then included Buster's name 9 times. So that's kind of just the appetizer for the feast of bizarre revelations that came out in September. Starting on the 4th, when just one day after resigning from his law firm, Alec calls 911 again to say this time he's been shot on the side of the road in Hampton County.
I got a flat tire, and I stopped, and somebody stopped to help me. And when I turned my back, they tried to shoot me.
He was then taken to a hospital and treated for a superficial gunshot wound to the head, according to the police. But suspicions were already raised before he even got off the road because a bystander also called 911 saying that they saw him laying on the ground covered in blood and waving his hands around, but then adding,
"He looks fine, but it kind of looks like a setup."
And they appear to be onto something there because just days later, Alec admitted to staging the whole thing with a former client, giving him the gun and paying him to kill the ex-lawyer so that Buster would collect about $10 million in life insurance. Meanwhile, Alec announces that he's entering rehab for an opioid addiction. Then his law firm claims that he only resigned after it was discovered he embezzled funds from the